All right, so I'm going to wait for that to finish loading and perfect.
So this is where.
Yes, awesome. So we had technical difficulties earlier, but we are live once again. I'm Yuko. I work for Seaquaria Ocean Education, and today we are doing November Seaquaria Office Hour. And for today's theme, we're looking at diversity in your Seaquarium. For those of you who don't know what a Seaquarium is a saltwater aquarium that we install into the different schools in the Victoria area so that students get a chance to experience, observe, and connect with local species from the Salish Sea. Joining me today is Cathy Carolsfeld, who is one of the co-founders of the Seaquaria program. What inspired you to create this program, Cathy?
Actually, it was kids at Pick West School who asked us to. We did a field trip with them in West Bay, which is right in our neighborhood nearby here, and went back to our house where we have a bit of a lab and seawater system. And when they went back to school, they asked if we could please have an aquarium in their classroom.
That's
so we joined it. And then as people, other teachers came by, they wanted to do the same thing. So slowly we just found that lots of schools had Seaquarium.
Mm-hmm. And this year we have about 14 different schools that have requested the Seaquarium program, which is really, really exciting because we're able to provide these kids some sense of nature education inside their own school community.
And I think a year like this, it's really important because it does have a really important kind of calming and stress reliever function as well. Yeah.
And this is an older model, but behind me is our office Seaquarium. Our office Seaquarium looks a little bit grungier than most of our school ones because we let our ecosystem kind of foster itself and it thrives on its own, and we let the ecosystem change throughout the year. And it's been stable since we put it in over the summer.
Yeah. This is the unit that used to be at Rogers Elementary.
Oh, is it? Yeah, I love it because I get to see all of the different moving parts of the aquarium. It's really technical, but it just gives you such a sense of peace when you see all the little sticklebacks or the perch just swimming around eating. And what got you started in the marine field, Cathy?
Oh, actually, what got me first started was I spent a year in the West Indies, learned to dive there, and fell in love with invertebrates, and that's when I decided I wanted to do that for a living. That was that. Well, I mean, I just started learning about the marine ecosystems and fell in love with inverts, and from there did my undergrad and then came out here for graduate work, and I've always liked to share that with other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we will be sharing some live animals with everyone today. I have some of our animals set up in little basins that I will be bringing around and showcasing them and giving them close-ups with the camera. But before we jump into that, Cathy, you studied sea squirts. We chatted about this a little earlier. And I'm sorry to make you repeat yourself, but it was such a fascinating story about what was the most interesting thing you learned about sea squirts?
That they have a lot more to them than we all give them credit for. I think the sea squirts are in this group that are overlooked by people studying invertebrates and also by people studying vertebrates because they're right in between. But they're really very fascinating, and you think of them as just something that squirts at you when you touch it, but actually those squirts perform a very important function, and they do it for all kinds of different reasons, including when their fishing net, which fills almost their whole body and is a tiny little net that's like fractions of a millimeter in rectangular diameter, sometimes gets clogged up, and that's one of the reasons they'll squirt. It's not just to defend themselves against predators and people like us. It's also to unclog their filtering mechanism so that they can start fresh. And they'll do little mini squirts as well, just to release that mucus fishing net from their basket and let it free up all the particles and start filtering again.
Yeah, they're really amazing. I'll pull one out of our Seaquarium later if we have time on the stream. And let's jump into the animals. So I'm gonna start my other camera. Go. And let's start in this basin first here. Perfect. Let's start with this animal here. Can you see it okay over there, Cathy?
Yeah, it's good. It's got a little bit of glare over a couple of the arms, but it might be hard to. I think it's the lights over top that are.
Oh, yeah.
That's a little bit better.
So let me just,
Can you do the spotlight video for me?
there you go.
For this. Oh, that's on that one.
On the recording, it'll show Kathy. Unless you spotlight the video.
No, this is fine. On the YouTube, it's okay. No, we're okay.
Or
We're
would it be
okay.
better to have that bigger?
I think we'll be okay for the stream.
This is only attached to that one. Is there a mouse for this one?
Don't worry about it, Kathy. She's got it figured out.
Yes. All right. Cathy, can you talk to us a little bit about this blood star here? Can you see
What
it?
would you? What would you? Well,
So,
one of the funniest things I think is that they call them blood stars, but not all of them are bright red. Some of them are orange, some of them are yellow, some of them are more brown and mottled, but we do call them collectively blood stars. They're pretty distinctive, and they can have really beautiful patterns in the middle there where all the arms come together, that central disc. It's hard to see in this viewing of it, but you get some beautiful different colorations there. This is actually the surface of the animal that has the mouth is on the underside. And these guys are pretty fascinating because we think of them, or they've always been thought of as being suspension feeders, which are animals that take particles out of the water. But we found that they both, when diving and observing them underwater and in our seawater system, that they often go over and graze or munch on animals that are covering the rocks, and especially some of the sponges. They love that purple, what we call purple or volcano sponge. They go a little bit crazy for it, and they really enjoy that sponge. So a lot of these creatures that you have in your tank, you might start to notice things that haven't actually been noted in the literature. So there's always new things to learn. We could turn it over if you want to look at the mouth too. Go ahead and ask your question now.
is it true that sponges are evolutionarily one of the oldest animals on our planet?
Of the multicellular ones,
Of the
yes,
multicellular,
they're very old, but they're also from a very old line, but they're also quite well developed. And very recently, the supervisor that I worked with also worked on the nervous system of sponges, and you might not believe it, but they can actually propagate signals. They do have a very what would you call it?
Extensive.
No, they have a lot more of a nervous system than you would ever imagine. They can really react to things, and the glass sponges are especially interesting, which
Which we can't house at the moment.
You can have, but there's lots of information out there about them and their creatures.
Mm-hmm. I won't be able to flip the star around because it's hanging on pretty tightly to the muscle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. It's a good thing to remember, is we don't like to force those kinds of things, because the sea squirts are actually, we could probably flip the whole, do you want me to do it while you're
Sure.
If we flip the whole thing over, you can see these are the arms, and
I'm gonna actually turn on the audio on my phone. So this way we can capture everything you're saying. All right.
So you're not going to see the underside where the mouth is. It's in that central disc part, but the arms radiate out, and these channels here are lined with tiny tube feet. And that's what helps them move around and also to hang on to the substrate. You might not be able to see it there, but the tube feet are hanging on to the muscle. So it's pretty amazing.
Now, I'm gonna actually switch our camera, so we'll primarily use this. I'll let you hold on to this.
So I should dry my hands.
Let you hang on to this for just a moment while I go switch our camera. So do this. Awesome.
So did you want to look at the?
Yeah, let's
Did
see.
you have any other questions about?
Yeah, I was wondering, I have seen mucus come out of their armpits right here when I'm observing them in the tanks. Is that, I've read in literature that that's how they capture food. Is that true?
Well, as suspension feeders, yeah, when they are suspension feeding, I believe that's one of the mechanisms for doing it, but I don't know a lot about that.
Okay, some more research needed there. Now, this is one of my absolute favorite animals. This is a California sea cucumber, and although they look very spiky, they're actually fairly harmless. So I'll let you.
I'll just touch it so you can see they really are quite soft and pliable. So a lot of students, when they first meet this creature, are a bit afraid of it, but once they realize that it's really a gentle giant, they become very attached.
And something that I thought was very fascinating when I first learned it is that the sea cucumber and sea stars are related. They're in the same phylum or grouping of animals.
And we talked a moment ago about the tube feet that were in the sea star here on the underside, the thing that it can hang on and move around with. Well, those same tube feet are on this type of sea cucumber. That's one of the features that unites the echinoderms. And I have to be very gentle about this because his tube feet are hanging on to the bottom of the bucket. But in the case of the sea cucumber, all of the tube feet have rotated to the side of the body that hugs the substrate, so they can actually crawl along. Those are all the tube feet. Can you imagine? And again, that's another example, like the sea squirts, where they have a very sophisticated nervous system. Imagine being able to, we have to take care of 2 legs and 2 arms to walk. Imagine coordinating, how many are here? Probably 3,000 feet.
Yes.
And on this side, it's easier to see the front from the back end as well, which is not typically what we think of for the group that these animals belong to, which are echinoderms. Here's the front end here. The mouth is in the middle of this little feeding appendage, which is not out right now, but it looks like a bit like a mop when all the tentacles are out, and it goes along and mops up the dirt and poop and
all the other good
from the
stuff.
bottom of the ocean. So it's a great animal to have in the tank. And this is the back end, where if we had something bright, you could see them pumping. This is where they not only pump out their poop, but they also have something called a respiratory tree. So a tree that helps them get oxygen from the water that is inside this back end. They have to pump water in and out of it so they can extract oxygen from the seawater.
So essentially, these animals breathe using their bums. It's another fascinating adaptation of ocean life.
Okay, buddy, sorry. Oh, he's starting to let his...
Oh, look at that.
See the white?
Maybe he feels like you're giving him a massage, and
Yeah.
so he's starting to relax a little bit.
The other amazing thing about these guys is he's pretty soft right now, which is a good indication that we're holding him and touching him gently. They can also harden right up to kind of try to protect themselves. But when they go flaccid like this, they're able to crawl into the tiniest little spaces so that they can hide and get away from something that might be going after it. And it's that what we call a water vascular system that that helps them do that, and that also connects them with other animals like the sea stars. So we'll let him get back.
We'll let him relax a little bit. Thanks for being a good sport. Let's take a
Oh,
look.
these guys are feeding.
Oh, and let's take a look at these guys here.
Oh.
These are probably familiar creatures. These are barnacles, and I have multiple times cut my foot open on them when I am traversing the tide pools.
That shadow was enough to get me
I
back in again.
know.
Do you want me to hold the book?
It's okay. I can hopefully get them back out. But if you look carefully, you can see some movement coming out of their shells. And that is actually a modified foot that they are using to feed. They essentially sweep water into their shell, and their mouth is at the very bottom of their shell. And they just kind of filter out food, and which they eat mostly plankton. So it can be.
There's one. You've got it right in the middle. That's nice. Yeah.
I'm hesitant to bring the camera closer because
Yeah.
I'll cast a shadow
Yeah.
on them.
But if you look carefully, you'll probably be able to see that.
Mm-hmm. If not, we'll be doing
another interesting thing about them and the way they sweep their feet out. If there is a strong current with a lot of these barnacles, they will actually, rather than sweeping and expending energy to grab their food, they will actually just hold the foot, or what's called the cirrus, out into the direction of the water flow, so that they can capture the food from there without even having to work for it. And they can also turn it so that it will go into the current.
They're very fascinating creatures because they do start their life out as a free swimming larvae. So they swim around the water column until they find somewhere that they want to settle down on. And they essentially cement their heads to either the rock or even a whale's flippers and tails. And they start building the shells around them. And one thing that surprised me was that they're related to crabs. They're part of the same phylum Arthropoda. And I believe in the larval stage is where they share the most characteristics with the jointed appendages, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, their appendages are still.
And they're still jointed, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I casted a shadow and they immediately just stopped feeding. All right, let's take a look at the other animal in here. Hold on to this. So these are mussels. Everyone probably knows about them because they're very tasty.
It's good.
Mm-hmm. They are another species that basically filter water, and I like to describe them as the ocean's custodians, or one of the ocean's custodians. They have siphon that they draw water right into their shell, right into their body, and they can pick out pieces of food. And I think I read somewhere that the ones that we most commonly see are hybrids. Is that true?
Around here, we have several different species.
Mm-hmm.
The hybrids you're talking about are between one of the mussels that's been introduced, the gallo mussels that have come in the bilge water of ships as they go by, but we also have two other species here that they sometimes hybridize with.
Mm-hmm. And all of those threads that you see kind of at the edge, at the base of the mussel, those are byssus threads. Essentially, they secrete, I actually don't know what the byssus threads are made of. Do you know
the chemical structure? I don't know. No, but it's supposed to be one of the strongest and most elastic chemicals around, because it's really pretty much on the exposed coast where you find mussels. They just don't move, and you have to work really hard to get them off the rocks.
When we go collect mussels for our programs, they are difficult, or they can be difficult to do gently. One thing that's really cool about their byssus threads is that it hardens underwater, which I think there are research looking into byssus threads and seeing if we can use them for different things. I think there's medical research involved with it. Some pretty awesome things. And you can see this mussel right here.
Is it open a little bit?
It is opened a little bit. It looks like it's nice and relaxed and it's siphoning water. I wish I had food coloring. I can show them actually siphoning. Maybe for the next video.
The other interesting things about these clumps of mussels is you often find other animals associated with them, what we call epifauna. So the barnacles will grow over them. On the side here, there's a little tiny plumose anemone too. I believe it's a plumose. I can't see clearly enough to.
I think it's a plumose. They're more delicate looking. And then right next to the mussels, we have a scallop. Now, Cathy, do you mind moving? Yeah, moving the mussels off to the side. I'm gonna come over here. And the scallop is not quite relaxed enough for us to look inside, but this is a swimming scallop. One of their major adaptation is that they can actually swim away from predators. If they ever feel like they're in danger, they suck in a lot of water into their shell and actually push the water from the back end of their shell, and it propels them forward, and they can swim away by opening and closing really quickly so that they don't end up as a meal. And Cathy, can you lift up the scallop? I want to see if we can get a
actually,
shot.
from over here, you can almost see the eyes. It's opening a little bit.
Oh, yes. I don't think I can zoom in on my phone like this.
What did you want me to do?
I wanted to see if I can get a shot of its eyes. Surprisingly, this bivalve, or animal with two shells, has about 50 to 100 eye spots. Now, they are not fully developed eyes like our eyes. They are eye spots that help them detect light and shadow. And this can be very useful if there's a predator swimming over them. What typically eats scallops besides us, of course? I love scallops.
There's all kinds of things that will eat them if they can get their hands on them. A lot of the predatory sea stars will, depending on their size. There's fish that will eat them. I think, all kinds of.
They're a common prey animal.
Yeah, but they are able to get away fairly well. The interesting thing is that they also use those byssal threads to hang on, but they can let go of them to move to a new place because they do have to move and find good food sources.
And I'm always, I never know what is exactly growing on their shell.
Yeah, there's all kinds of things. Right now I see some little tiny, what look like tiny sponges, something like those little white tubes there. Might be sponges, I'm not sure. There's a lot of algae. This purple might be a colonial ascidian. But again, I can't see it very, very well. I'd have to, either that or it's a sponge that, actually this one is probably a sponge. They have specific.
This one right here?
It's all this here.
All this here.
Yeah. And the swimming scallops have particular types of sponges that tend to grow with them. Myxilla, mycale, but you find other ones as well.
So animals growing on animals.
And it looks like those are probably the remnants of hydroids, which are related to the jellyfish and things. It's the polyp version of them. These long stringy things.
Let's move over here. Let's do a quick shot of them. Oh yeah, I think we can see it.
Yeah, they're really nice. So I wonder if I come from here very gently, I can point out. See these guys, right?
Yes. It's a very delicate process.
Sweeping the water. It's beautiful.
It's good to know there's a lot of food in the water we're giving them.
So they have their home built right in. And see, there's 4 kind of shells on the top. those can close right down
Mhm.
when they need to, so that the animal can protect itself. Nice.
Great. Over here, we have some really cool animals. I think I say that for all the animals I work with. On this oyster here, I have a keyhole limpet, which is not actually a true limpet species. They are a snail species. Do you know what the difference between snails and limpets are, Kathy?
Snails usually have the coil in the shell,
Mm-hmm.
but it's
There's exceptions.
There's always exceptions, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And let's take a look. You can see this keyhole limpet's mouth at the bottom and rhinophores. Let me see if I can get that to focus. Rhinophores are typically used to sense light and chemicals in the water. So it's one of their sensory organs. And like most snails, this keyhole limpet has something called a radula, which is a rasping tongue that they use to scrape food off of surfaces. It definitely looks like this snail is wearing a hat. It's so cute. And this hole at the top is where they tend to expel their waste. And you can see their mantle on the side here. And these animals are really great for our aquariums because they tend to eat all of the algae that grows on the glass, meaning we have to clean the glass less. You have anything to add to the limpets? I feel like you have a little bit more.
It's hard to, we don't see it here, but that's its muscular foot that covers the whole surface area of the bottom surface of the animal that's hanging on, and it's super tough. Like it can really hang on with a lot of suction. So that's what keeps it protected when the tide goes out and
things start pecking at
coming
them.
at them. Yeah.
Yeah, these animals need to be really hardy because not only do they have to be adapted to a marine life when the tide is high, but as soon as the tide goes out, they are exposed to a whole brand new set of predators, environmental conditions, and just temperature change is another huge one.
Although these ones tend to be a bit lower in the intertidal, so they're not exposed as much as a lot of the other common limpets that you see when you're on the beach.
This is an active little one. And other than the keyhole limpet, I also have a mossy chitin. Chitins are essentially a prehistoric snail, and they're flat snails with 8 articulating shells on the back that protects them from predators. And this one is called a mossy chitin because the stiff bristles on the edge of their body make them look like moss when you're out hunting for them. Yeah, let me see if I can. Do you think you can slide it off the plate, Kathy? This is a 2-hand job. You can really see their muscular foot on the bottom here.
And that's a lot what the limpet and keyhole limpet foot looks like as well. It occupies most of that surface. And you can see just how muscular it is. There's the head end with the mouth in the middle of it, and that little conveyor belt of the
conveyor belt of teeth, essentially. Yeah. And watch as this chitin starts to curl up as one of its defense mechanisms.
Do we want to do that, or do we want to let him?
We'll let him relax a little bit. That is fair.
Well, actually, yeah. So that's what they'll do if they're removed like that. But if we put them back, even when you're moving animals into the Seaquarium from outside, it's important to put them on a surface where they will be able to flatten down and hang on tight. I just wanted to add one thing to the keyhole limpet that's really kind of interesting. A bunch of these animals have little scale worms that live with them. And this outer part here is the mantle that Yuko was talking about. And kind of on the inside flap of the mantle, these almost always have a little worm associated with them. They're called scale worms. And they get the remnants of the food, but they also protect in some ways. They're kind of like a little guard dog that protects the limpet from things that might want to
It's a,
swipe at them.
it's a little
Yeah.
guard worm.
But actually, they're even more so have a function like that with some of the tube worms, where you'll have a scale worm that lives near the front end and protects it.
Yeah, I have here, these three are also oysters here. These three smaller ones are the only native oyster species on our coast being the Pacific Northwest.
Only these three?
Yes, only these specific three that I collected. But I should say the Olympia oyster is the only native species here. And compared to this one, this is the Pacific oyster, which is actually not native to our coast.
Yeah, this is one that came over from Japan, and it's now the one that's mostly cultured here on the coast. But they grow to be as big as my like.
Yeah,
big, I
oh my,
guess.
yeah.
Whereas the native oysters, I think rarely get bigger than about that. But they're sweet and nice.
Have you had them before?
I haven't actually had them, no, but I've heard that they're really good.
Oh,
And
okay.
that's true with a lot of the scallops too. He's all open and he's swimming.
He saw your shadow, and so I hope I managed to catch that. I'm not sure if I caught it swimming, but Cathy's hand just kind of slid over with the shadow, and the scallop reacted by opening and closing its shell really quickly and propelling itself forward.
You can really see all the tentacles out there. So all of these animals, that unlike us who depend mostly on visual cues, or a lot of these marine animals don't have eyes that function to see images. It's more light and dark, but they depend a lot on smell and taste. So they detect predators that way instead. So tentacles like that are super important for them to see what's going on in their environment and feel what's going on and smell.
So all of the senses except for vision. So Olympia oysters, they are at their species listed as special concern under SARA, which the acronym stands for species at risk. Asked. There you go. The acronym always eludes me. Olympia oysters are really cool because they can switch genders, they can switch sexes every year. So mature Olympia oysters start off their life as males, and then the next year they produce female gametes. So they produce eggs, and then the year after they produce male gametes, sperm. And they're also one of the only species of bivalves to brood their young. So brooding their young means they keep their eggs inside their shell and protect their eggs until they are ready to be released. How long is the brooding
In
process?
oysters, I'm not
Not
sure.
sure.
Yeah, but I know there's that just reminded me, there's species across all different species that do brooding, and some of the ascidians do that too. They'll hold them in the siphon where the water goes out until they're ready to go.
So I just oysters, and I just never thought oysters would take care of their young, like, because that's really a trait associated with mammals. I find mammals, vertebrates.
Yeah, but there are a lot of invertebrates that do that, and that they adjust, they have different strategies for taking care of their young, the type of eggs they have, how much food is in it, all that kind of stuff.
It's really interesting. All right, I think we're almost through all of the animals. We have two more different critters here that got cut out at the beginning of our stream. So here we have the Decorator Crab. This is the graceful Decorator Crab, and as you can see, it is covered in pieces of red algae. And let me see if I can give a closer look at this. Yes, that'd be wonderful.
Turn it over, you want?
I wanted to turn it over and also take a closer look at the little hairs all over its carapace. I don't know if my camera is good enough to capture that. But the Decorator Crab has tiny little hairs all over its hard exoskeleton that they use to attach algae on, kind of like Velcro. You want to talk a little bit about why they have this behavior, Cathy?
Yeah, well, basically, when you're out diving and you're looking for these guys, you pretty much don't see them unless you're unless you catch a little bit of their movement, because they can mimic their background so well. So they are protecting themselves by blending in with their local environment. And as they move around, they undress and redress so that they have on whatever's around them and can keep blending in. I don't know if you want me to tell the story of in our seawater system. Once we had a whole bunch of decorator crabs, and when we ship animals alive to other universities to keep in their systems, we use wet paper towels to keep them damp and in good shape. And I left a couple by accident in our sea table. And the next morning when I came in, I lifted up the piece of paper towel when I realized I had done that, and underneath it were about 10 or 15 crabs that were all covered in complete perfect little strips that were about 2 millimeters wide by about 10 or 15 millimeters long all over their body. And they were hunkered down under this floating paper towel. So they thought that they had it made. They were all protected under there. And that happened overnight. But I think since then, we've done it at the labs at UVic, and it happens during the course of a lab.
That'd be a fun little thing to get the kids to try to do. Get their decorator crabs to decorate in paper towel.
Or dress up.
Or dress up, yes. The kids do call the decorator crab Mr. or Mrs. Dress Up. They're very beautiful. Once they're fully decorated, sometimes they even put anemones on their backs to help defend themselves. They're absolutely stunning critters. And then I have two feisty hermit crabs off here. They're both, I believe, wearing whelk shells, which whelks are a predatory snail.
Dogwinkles.
Dogwinkles, sorry.
Yeah. But they do come, you do find hermit crabs that can be in the huge Oregon whelk shells, which are about, can be 4 to 6 inches long.
I have a very hard time telling species of hermit crab apart. How might you tell a species of hermit crab from each other?
I think there's a lot to do with the front claws and the antennae and all that, but they have to be out all the way out of their shell like that. And yeah, for me, I mean, it's not, I'm sure that eventually if you're working with the hermit crabs all the time, you'd be able to tell them at a glance, but you do have to be sure they have to be out and
not hide.
Yeah. They're all in the same genus though, so if you're not sure, it's better just to call them a hermit crab.
Yes.
Of the genus Puggerus. There is one that has this beautiful orange and very flat wide claw that closes the opening of their shell, and it's quite distinctive. I don't remember the names of them all though.
There's just too many different species to remember.
I think for a lot of that kind of stuff, if you want to be sure, you have to look it up anyway, so you compare it, and there's some very good guides around for that.
You guys are just out and bullying the poor decorator crab, eh? Now, hermit crabs, they are crabs, but they do have an exoskeleton, except that their exoskeleton generally only covers the front half of their body. So their abdomen is actually very soft and very squishy, which is why they run around to find empty snail shells to slide into as a form of protection. It's a pretty good form of protection, as they can just hide in their shells whenever a predator comes by. And if they fit the shell perfectly, they can just close off the opening with one of their claws, and it's very difficult to remove them.
Although if you've ever seen hermit crabs fight over a shell, they can get pretty nasty, and they can get other ones out when they really want to.
They are, I think I read in one of the reference books, someone described them as the clowns of the sea, because they just fumble all over the place. They lug this big shell behind them.
They're also very clever.
They are also very clever. Anytime I plant eelgrass or surfgrass into the tank, they just pull it up within the week?
So the hermit crabs are different from the crabs like the decorator and the kinds of crabs that you get from fishermen that you eat, in that they're just in a different group than the true crabs. So they're not considered true crabs. They only have 3 sets of legs rather than 4, and there's a few other things. So they're more closely related to some of the other shy crabs like the heart crabs and things like that.
Oh, is that how you just shy crabs? I like that.
Yeah, the true crabs tend to be more aggressive.
Hmm.
That's not always the case, but like these guys amongst true crabs are not super aggressive, but
They prefer to hide than confront. Oh, you went in already. Let's put you back down.
so a lot of times if you put them on your hand like this and you're very patient, they'll come out because they want to turn themselves around. And I'll just get a little bit of water on me. See his eyes? See how quickly they can get themselves turned over?
I do have to say, I feel like hermit crab real estate is a lot better than our current real estate. Our rental scene in Victoria is not as good as their shell scene. Awesome. All right, I think it's time for us to wrap this up. So I'll let you.
I'm gonna actually move this guy over there.
Sounds
so he
good.
doesn't get
Bullied.
bullied.
So we're very gentle when we're handling all of our animals. And a big thing for our program is actually to teach our students how to be gentle and respect the different animals. The students don't generally handle the animals once they're in the tank, but sometimes they do have to reach their hand in to flip over a fallen chitin or to check the conditions of the sea cucumber. And a lot of the kids are super respectful after learning more about the different animals that live in the Seaquarium. So I'm gonna turn this back on. Okay. With this job, my pants are my towel. Awesome. So thank you for tuning in. This will be recorded and posted on our YouTube channel. So if you are a teacher with the Seaquarium and you are hoping to learn more about the different animals, please check out the rest of our Animal Guide series. We will have more videos produced in the coming months. It's been a little bit crazy with COVID being such a nuisance, I guess is the right way to describe it.
Or just changing our world a bit.
Changing our world a bit. We're navigating, we're adapting, like the animals that we work with. Yeah, there are role models, right? Adapt and overcome and be resilient. And Cathy, I know you wanted to chat a little bit about names.
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know, I guess I wear a few different hats, but one of them is that I've been with a group called the Association of Northwest Aquatic and Marine Educators. That's us here. There are actually 4 chapters in this group. It's an international group, and BC is the only Canadian chapter. We also include Oregon, Washington, and Alaska. And all of us are very passionate about both aquatic and marine education. And we're just starting again, thanks to COVID, to try to offer some resources online. And we do some of this in partnership with World Fisheries Trust, because World Fisheries Trust is one of our institutional members, and we work together on a lot of these projects. We all share that passion for marine and aquatic education. So if you want to learn more about NAME, you can go just Google PACNAME, PACNAME, PACNAME.org, and you'll be brought to our website. And it would be great for you to take a look if you're interested, because we do host a conference every year. We take turns between the chapters. And this coming summer, we happen to be hosting in BC, and it'll be at Pearson College on the island. So we'd love to see you there, and we'll, through WFT, also let you know about any new activities or speaker panels that are going on so that you can learn more.
I'll include the link to everything in the description box of this live stream recording. And I gotta say, the conferences are amazing. You learn so much. There's so many amazing educators, conservationists, and just amazing people in this organization that teach it. And it's a space to share knowledge, which is something that everyone should be advocating for. Knowledge should be always shared.
Yeah.
And that's how we foster a good community.
Yeah, and it's a nice combination of researchers and community educators and teachers, but the idea is to provide everybody with an avenue to find out about hands-on ways of teaching about our aquatic and marine environments.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Cathy.
I know
it's a little bit messy, but we're still learning how to do a live stream, so thanks for being patient. And thank you for watching the video. Make sure, if you like our content, check out all of our other videos. We have Intertidal Safari that's coming out every week, where we explore local Victoria beaches. We have our animal guide videos where we feature different animals like the hermit crabs. We're having a sea cucumber and sea salmon coming out very soon. And check out the Marine Science Career Series, where we interview different people in the marine different people with marine careers, and kind of talking about how they end up where they are. So it's perfect for students who are interested in pursuing marine biology, but not quite sure where you're going with it yet. Awesome. And we'll chat